Well, Russia has intensified attacks on Ukraine. International pressure is mounting on the Kremlin. Donald Trump said that he struck a deal with NATO for the U.S. to send weapons to Ukraine through the alliance. Meanwhile, Ukraine's president discussed improved air defenses and intensified sanctions against Russia with two U.S. lawmakers who are backing a bill to impose tougher, punitive measures against Moscow. Here in Europe, leaders are urging the private sector to invest in rebuilding Ukraine. A 2.3 billion euro package announced or unveiled on Thursday. Joining me on the set is our international affairs editor, Philip Turle. Hello to you, Philip. This is the second day of the fourth Ukraine Reconstruction conference. Tell us who's taking part and where this money is coming from.
Well, I think the money is hopefully coming from investment, from banks, from partners who are keen to come up with funds to try to rebuild Iran. 15 heads of state and government, including Volodymyr Zelensky, who we just saw in those images, Friedrich Merz of Germany, Giorgia Meloni, who's chairing this conference, the Italian Prime Minister, Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the EU foreign policy, and Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister of Poland. They're all there taking part in this, plus 40 international organizations and 2,000 companies. So a big setup. And I think there is a lot of coaxing coming along from those international leaders to try to enthuse those participants to part with their money to rebuild Ukraine, saying that there is a future for the country. It could be a vital partner. It could be a future member of the European Union and of NATO. So it's time to get your checkbooks out and start rebuilding the country and investing in it right now. The World Bank estimates $524 billion is going to be needed to rebuild Ukraine over the next few years. You were right. The EU has given forward a pledge of 2.3 billion. That's including loan guarantees up to an average of about 1.8 billion and 580 million in grants, which they say will hopefully push more investors to come into Ukraine up to about 10 billion euros worth over the coming years. So a lot of enthusiasm about the fact that Ukraine can be rebuilt. They just need the money and the enthusiasm and the investment for that to start to kick off and to begin.
And just to push back against that idea of enthusiasm, it seems like every week we're talking about Russia carries out the largest drone attack or missile attack since the war began. How can reconstruction efforts begin in Ukraine when there's war on a daily basis?
Well, there's a certain nuance to this, as one would say in French. First of all, if you look at the casualty toll for the month of June, you're right. It's been one of the worst casualty tolls since the start of the war in Ukraine. 232 civilians killed, 1,343 civilians wounded. That's according to the UN mission, and up to 13,600 civilians killed since the start of the war in February 2022. So this summit's got a triple ambition. They know it's pretty difficult to start rebuilding houses, offices, when they're not sure that they're not going to be bombed again the next day by Russian attacks. What they want to do is to respond to humanitarian needs, particularly refugees and displaced people. Up to about 4 million are believed to be displaced in Ukraine right now. They also want to undertake urgent infrastructure repairs to electricity supplies, for example, to plumbing and water supplies that have been damaged by the Russian drone attacks, and to create a basis with this investment for long-term reforms and private investment in the future once and if a peace deal has been signed. Now, there has been a call by Volodymyr Zelensky at the podium saying that the most important thing for the West is to step up those sanctions on Russia, to stop Russia from maintaining those drone and missile attacks on Ukraine. He said we really do need faster investment in the country for that to be the case so that Ukraine can defend itself, saying basically that Vladimir Putin seeks to destroy life itself with strikes in Ukraine, and that's why the country needs this investment right now.
Now, these talks taking place at the same time as the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Francis Emmanuel Macron met in the UK. They're discussing the so-called coalition of the willing. What came out of those talks?
Well, the coalition of the willing is looking at how it can intervene in Ukraine once a peace deal has been signed with the Russians. So this is nothing that's going to happen anytime soon. And all the way down the line, there have been red lines from the Russians saying we're not agreeing to this, we're not agreeing to that. Basically, they want all 4 provinces in the east of Ukraine, no NATO membership, no EU membership, and certainly no troops on the ground. What the coalition of the willing is proposing, this is about 30 countries coming together to come up with a project for the future of Ukraine, to provide military aid to the country, to guarantee Ukraine's territorial integrity, to strengthen its military capacity, and to deploy troops on the ground as a peacekeeping force to make sure that there is no future threat from Russian aggression. As I was saying, that is a red line from the Russians right now. This is a long-term process, but there has been this meeting over the last couple of days in London between Emmanuel Macron and Sir Keir Starmer, which Volodymyr Zelensky also took part in via video conference. It's basically to show Russia that Europe is willing to stand on its own 2 feet and to stand up to future Russian aggression and to be ready to act if the United States pulls out of NATO or the US pulls the plug on supporting Europe in the future. I think that's the most important message coming out of this coalition of the willing meeting. Plus one other aspect, which is nuclear cooperation between France and the United Kingdom, where what has been agreed is that France has an independent nuclear deterrent. The UK's nuclear deterrent is dependent on NATO and therefore on the United States. But they are willing now to combine their different forces together so that if there is an attack, for example, by Russia on one European country, then the attack from France and the United Kingdom will be a joint attack, a joint nuclear attack if it has to be. But that is the way forward as an important way of showing the Russians that Europe is serious about standing up for itself.
All right, Philip. Thank you very much, Philip Churl from our International Affairs Desk.